God, am I sleeping? God, am I resting? There am I working? God, am I thinking? God, am I speaking? Be my everything. Be my everything. Be my everything. Be my everything. God, am I hoping? There am I dreaming? God, am I watching? God, am I waiting? God, am I laughing? There am I weeping? God, am I hurting? God, am I healing? Be my everything. Be my everything. Be my everything. Be my everything. Christ in me, Christ in me, Christ in me, the hope of glory. You are everything. Christ in me, Christ in me, Christ in me, the hope of
right to bed. It's 10 o'clock, I'll go right to bed, and then my mom's like texting me, and she's like, you should be in your basement. I was like, what's happening? So then No, we never had anything like that. It was real windy at the start, which made me pretty nervous. And then, oh yeah, okay. So yeah,
Did you make it inside?
Yes, we made it inside. It was like perfect timing. It worked out great. We threw some of our cushions in the garage and got inside. But yeah, then I was up until like 11 because I didn't feel like I could go to bed. And then I was just up because it's the day before today, and I'm awake.
Another ray came about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Yes, we heard that too because Teddy was up, and so ended up being up for a little bit for that.
I'm gonna go sit down.
Okay.
I had no kids in my house right now.
Ooh.
We're all good. So I'm like, I can actually sleep through storms, but it was so loud.
It was loud.
So are you flying out tonight?
No, my husband is doing it. I'm staying home.
Oh.
We are not getting any audio from her computer into this subnormal here.
But it's going to YouTube just everything.
Oh, that's reversed. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. How are you two? It's almost wedding time. Sorry, that was not the right
Feeling
thing to say.
stressful.
I am very excited for your wedding. How about that? Is that better?
It is chilly. There is like a blower right here, so I think there's.
Today is teens. You got it. It's all gonna come together and it's gonna be beautiful.
You know, at the end of the day, you'll be married. So, woo!
That's the goal.
There you go.
I mean, you'll be married in the eyes of.
It is. It is. They're testing the sound, so I'm just living my life.
What's up, CJ? So Janelle's preaching today. So you're almost ready? Yeah. You're gonna do slides. But it is just scripture.
You better hit these right on the dot.
Stop it. It's
Sorry,
just
sorry.
You better hit them right on the dot. I've got my own job.
the passage at the beginning, and then he goes to the for the rest of it. And then she's got a couple of questions for reflection.
Does it feels okay? Should I turn it off?
Yep. The only thing you really have to do is How are you all this morning? It is good to see you inside and not outside in a muddy, rainy. Is it rainy right now? It's going back and forth today, so who knows what's going on. So thank you for being flexible and for being here this morning. We are glad that you are all here and you got a message and made your way over here today. We get to listen to Janelle bring us a message a little bit later today. She has been preparing, and we're so glad to have her here. Chris is heading out to go preach at another church this morning, so we get Janelle. So thank you for being willing to do that this morning. It's so good to hear other voices sometimes as well. Just a couple of things that are happening this week that you need to know about. Branch students, if you haven't signed up to let us know that you're going to the beach tonight, the weather's supposed to clear up, so it's supposed to be a really beautiful night. So if you are an incoming 6th grader through a high school senior, you are invited to go to Millennium Park tonight. All the costs are covered, games, hanging out, just a fun night to connect. But we do need to know who's coming so the caravan doesn't leave without you. So make sure you sign up on your church center app, okay? Also, this week, Wednesday, for everyone, we're having a partner gathering on Wednesday night. If you have been around for a number of years, we had partner gatherings pretty regularly. Then COVID, so we haven't had one in a long time. So we're excited to bring it back. If you haven't been around and haven't experienced a partner gathering, a partner is just what we call those who say, yep, I call the branch home. I agree with its mission and purpose and agree to be a part of that. Many churches would call that members. We call them partners because this is a partnership, right? So we call this gathering a partner gathering, but you don't actually have to be a partner to come. So if you want to learn more about the branch, if you want to get to know a couple of people, learn more about what's coming next, you'll hear some really good updates on Wednesday night. So we hope you'll join us for that. We will provide dinner and we will provide childcare, but for both of those things to happen, I need you to sign up maybe now. So if you get your phone out and open your church center app and let us know you are coming, that would be wonderful so we can have enough food for everybody and enough people to cover childcare as well. All right? Okay. That's all I have for the moment. Why don't you stand up if you're in the building and go say hello to somebody that you haven't seen in a while maybe. Share a memorable moment from this summer. Good, bad, whatever it is. If you're online, we'd love to have you share as well. Just pop that in the chats and or in the comments, and we will come back in a couple of minutes. Go say hello. All right, friends, I'm going to invite you to find your seats once again. You can actually stay standing if you'd like. There's a lot of exuberant conversations going on, so I really hope there's a lot of memorable moments being shared. I love it. You are invited to sit where you are. You can stand. We're going to sing here in a minute. And as always, these are invitations to join in, not expectations. If you would like to sing along, great. If you want to sit and listen or walk around in the back as the music goes, you are welcome to do whatever is meaningful for you this morning. But before we sing, I invite you to just take a deep breath. To root yourself here in this moment with these people in this space. If we were in the park, I would invite you to take in the fresh air, but we're not this morning. We're inside, and so I invite you to breathe in the air that we are grateful for, to have a roof over our heads this morning, and for the air conditioning to give us some rest from humidity and all that it feels like outside. And I wonder if you're in a space this morning that can open your hearts up to a bit of awe or a bit of wonder. What might that look like for you this morning? What might bring awe and wonder? Hear these words from Psalm 19. The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display God's craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak, and night after night they make God known. They speak without a sound or a word. Their voice is never heard, and yet their message has gone throughout the earth, and their words to all the world. That same craftsmanship and artistry and beauty that is on display in the heavens and the stars and in nature is on display in each one of us too. Along with creation, you proclaim God's glory. You display God's artistry. And when we come together, we do that collectively together. So that is God's invitation to us this morning, to simply be, to be present here in this moment together, and in so doing, to proclaim God's glory together. Let's sing. The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, a seat. As a way this morning of setting an intention for this moment and our time together, I'm going to offer 3 questions for you to sit and reflect on for a couple of moments. These questions come from Brené Brown from a podcast I heard, and they're helpful for me when I need something to root myself. So I hope they're helpful for you too. So in this moment and in this space, take a moment to think about what you need. Take a moment to think about how you can feel connected, how you can feel healthy, and maybe that's physically healthy, but maybe it's emotionally healthy, maybe it's spiritually healthy, or take a step in that direction. And how can you feel purposeful? What do you need in this moment in order to feel connected, healthy, or purposeful? We're going to play for a little bit, and then we'll sing again. But in that quiet time, I invite you to reflect on those 3 questions this morning. Life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? From the ground, the sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burdens down? Kiddos, if you are in preschool through 4th grade, you can head on out the back. Becky is going to meet you and take you downstairs. A very excited, sweet little Krondyke just ran right out the door. I love it. I love it. They'll come back at the end of our time together this morning. But like I said earlier, we are so excited to have Janelle DeBlay offer her wisdom and experience and passions and joys to us. So, it's a little scary standing in front of a group of people and talking, right? Would most of you agree with that? Unless you do it on a regular basis. So, can we show Janelle a little love as she comes up? That's a little love. We love you, Janelle. Thank
So
you.
much. Good morning. I had really been looking forward to doing this outside because there's just something about people being in camp chairs that just feels less threatening, a little less imposing, but this is fine too. This week we're going to continue on with the series that Chris started a couple weeks ago based on the children's book, What is God Like? By Rachel Held Evans and Matthew Paul Turner. Rachel Held Evans for me has been hugely impactful on my faith journey. She opened my eyes to asking questions and having that be okay, and that some questions might just not get answered. And her books have always taught me a lot, whether it's about the Bible or just about faith in general. And that includes this book that's meant for kids. She passed away unexpectedly a few years back, but she's still finding her way to speak to the world. So if you haven't read any of her stuff, I highly recommend it. I will get off my soapbox now. So diving in, Rachel Held Evans and Matthew Paul Turner say God is like a shepherd. And specifically, they say God is, quote, brave and good, a protector who loves her sheep so much that she watches over them and knows each of their names by heart. When looking at passages that kind of would explain this sort of, these attributes, John 10, verses 11 through 21 was where I kind of found these things. And so I'm going to read from the Message. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd puts the sheep before themselves, sacrifices themselves if necessary. A hired man is not a real shepherd. The sheep mean nothing to him. He sees a wolf come and runs for it, leaving the sheep to be ravaged and scattered by the wolf. He's only in it for the money. The sheep don't matter to him. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and my own sheep know me. In the same way, the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I put the sheep before myself, sacrificing myself if necessary. You need to know that I have other sheep in addition to those in this pen. I need to gather and bring them too. They'll also recognize my voice. Then it will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I freely lay down my life, and so I am free to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I lay it down of my own free will. I have the right to lay it down. I also have the right to take it up again. I received this authority personally from my Father. This kind of talk caused another split in the Jewish ranks. A lot of them were saying, he's crazy, a maniac, out of his head completely. Why bother listening to him? But others weren't so sure. These aren't the words of a crazy man. Can a maniac open blind eyes? The first attribute that Rachel Held Evans and Matthew Paul Turner talk about is that God being a shepherd, he is brave. And in this passage, we can find examples of bravery. The first line is describing the shepherd as saying he puts the sheep before them himself, sacrifices himself if necessary. It's an act of voluntarily laying down their life. And I see this as a clear allusion to the sacrifice that Jesus makes, obviously, for us. And I think most Christians see that message front and center, too. But I think as we know, as we've lived our lives, laying down one's life can be more metaphorical in nature. Yes, the shepherd would physically put themselves in harm's way to save the sheep, absolutely. but that's not the only harm there is in the world. The question I have is, how is Jesus, beyond his death and sacrifice for us, brave for us? And I don't know if you recognized this in the story, but we're the sheep, if that wasn't clear. God is brave not only because he's willing to lay down his life for us, but because he wants to keep us safe, unlike the hired hand who runs at the first sight of a wolf. And God fights for us. And I think more and more this fight is seen in our spiritual life. When we are angry and frustrated, and yes, even with God, he withstands that turmoil. And I have found over and over that when I feel like the world is falling apart, which in the last couple of years is pretty much daily, God has always fought to get to me. And inevitably, when I'm throwing my hands up and I'm like, there's no hope in this, let's give it up, someone comes into my life that just makes me shift slightly, changes my perspective a little bit. And when I can't find it for myself, someone else finds it for me. And I think that's God's way of saying, like, we're not left to fend for ourselves. But we trust that as the shepherd, God is working and bravely fighting to bring us back. And this brings me to the ways in which we are brave for each other. Yes, Jesus is the ultimate good shepherd, but as his followers, being his hands and feet, we are also shepherds. And how does this show up in our lives? I want to read some of Psalm 23 because I think it speaks to both God being our shepherd as well as what it means for us to be the shepherds in our world. It starts with, God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid. When you walk at my side, your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. God often acts through others. And I think that's what we can see in Psalm 23. We can ask, where have we supported someone? Where have we walked with someone through Death Valley? Have we invited people into our lives and offered comfort through food or some other tangible thing at a time when they needed it the most? Have we offered someone a place to stay when they needed it? Have we offered babysitting help when somebody just needs to catch their breath, as the verse says? During the pandemic, I think this showed up a little bit when I would deliver something to somebody's doorstep, and somebody would deliver something to my doorstep. It was just this way of connecting when everybody was very separated. And that was sometimes cookies or drinks or cards or flowers or whatever it might have been. As some of you know, 2 of our siblings live in the same neighborhood, and at that time, whenever I'd go to Costco, because people didn't want to make extra trips to stores, obviously, and every time I went to Costco, I'd text, I'd say, hey, do you guys need anything? And drop it at their door if they did. And I realize it's a very, silly thing, but other people were doing that for me too. Hey, I'm going to Meijer, do you need something? It was such a small thing, but it just offered this connection and just having somebody walk with you in a hard time in a small way. We've probably all endured suffering or heartbreak along someone, refusing to move on because it's not comfortable for us. And in some ways that means that we're sacrificing ourselves for them as well. And when we offer ourselves in all of these sorts of ways, it's an act of bravery. We are risking something. We're either risking the feeling of being denied, maybe, like, hey, I don't need your help, or risking our own vulnerability. When you enter into something like that with someone, you have to show yourself as well. And that means also letting ourselves be changed or feel pain with someone. And all of it matters. We are shepherded by a brave and good God so that we can know how to be brave for others when it matters most. They also describe God as being a loving protector in his role as a shepherd, which is different from being brave for us. Where Jesus' willingness to sacrifice his life is absolutely brave, it's not because it's demanded, but is given of his own free will. It's an incredible act of love and protection. In the story, these are just sheep. Like, they're just sheep. They're not really that special or meaningful at first glance. And yet the shepherd will stay awake through the night and fight off wild animals, which I'm just envisioning, like, you have a shepherd's staff and you're supposed to fight a wolf. Like, I just have that picture in my head. But willing to do anything to protect them. And so the hired hand, on the other hand, isn't fully invested, runs at the first sight of danger. And that's not about love. This protection that God offers us is an act of great love. And love and protection going together certainly isn't a new concept for us. We all experience deep love for people in our lives, and with that often comes the desire to protect them. When we went out to Colorado recently, one of the refrains that I was thinking about as we were hiking was this constant well, don't get between a mama bear and her cub. Like that, that idiom that's always kind of in your head. And I think, right, that's like a small example of that just inherent protection. But we experience that too as human beings and in all sorts of relationships. For example, Mike rides his bike to work every day now. It's kind of like a new thing over the last couple months. And he has the lights on the back and the front that are super bright. And he has, reflective gear for the rain. He has his, nice new helmet that he bought. And he has all the riding stuff that makes it as safe as it can be. He takes a different route that doesn't go by as many cars, even though it's longer, which is really probably me. He knows that that's probably my preference. But still, even with all that protection, I worry about it. And if he's not home, I'm it's 5:07. So I'm gonna start I track his location, find it on my phone. Where is that guy? So there's always this element of wanting to protect, or our kids, right? How much do we try to protect our kids mentally, emotionally, physically? And obviously we can't do all of that. There's no way to protect our kids from the world entirely, but we teach them how to cross the road and about talking to strangers and how to handle problems in relationships and how to say sorry and how to stand up for yourself when you need to. And we do all those things in an effort to protect them. And siblings and friends, we do the same thing. We root for them. We want them to succeed. We want to protect them from anything bad. And I was thinking about where this had shown up in my life for me. And it brought me back to a story when I was 17. And my parents were gone for the weekend. And I just wanted to have some friends over. This is not a big thing. Just wanted to have some friends over. And my sister, Lindsay, was home. And they were dating at the time, so he was also there. And just more people showed up than I had anticipated. So all of a sudden, there's a ton of cars on the road. And I think at one point, basically, a car that was coming down the road couldn't get through. So came and knocked on the door and was all these cars are in my way. So Matt and Lindsay come down, they're hey, we gotta figure this out, get your friends to move their cars, this is, getting out of hand. And at the time I was just so annoyed, of course, because I'm 17. And I'm annoyed that they're bothering me. But right, it was an act of protection. They were trying to keep me out of trouble. They were trying to solve a problem. And obviously I can see that with much more clarity now that I'm a little bit older. So we shepherd others through our love and protection because God does that for us. And finally, God as a shepherd is about knowing us intimately. And Jesus says, I know my own sheep, and my own sheep know me. And there isn't anything we can hide from God, and we don't have to try to hide anything. And that sounds scary, but it also frees us up to show exactly who we are. to be our most vulnerable selves, at least in the presence of God, if not elsewhere. God knows our true selves, just as the shepherd knows every one of his sheep. And just think about how many sheep a shepherd has, and watching them, keeping track of them out in the middle of like just so much land, open land. And they must know them incredibly well to be able to do that. And they're just sheep. Again, that's all they are. So I just think about how powerful God's love and desire to know us is. And we know the shepherd's voice. Jesus says, you need to know that I have other sheep in addition to those in this pen. I need to gather and bring them too. They'll also recognize my voice. And I have a lot of thoughts on how we talk about hearing God's voice and recognizing it coming from him. And it does remind me of the Holy Spirit and the way in which we hear God speak to us. But I do want to be clear that that really has only happened to me a couple times in my life where I felt very convicted that I was hearing God's voice. And I still had to talk to other people about it because I was like, are we sure does this feel right to other people too? But I also think that is a reminder that is what happens. God does try to talk to us there, that I should be listening. I should be paying attention. And it might come from other people, but I should be listening nonetheless. And if we move into thinking about how we're shepherds in our own lives, it's fair to consider where our knowledge and intimacy of someone else is important as well. There's people in our life that we know so well, our friends or spouses or siblings, that when they walk through the door or show up to the table, you can immediately know how they're feeling, whether it's good or bad. And sometimes I think that alone is the gift, the fact that you're offering someone the feeling of being known. You don't have to solve the problem, but just having someone feel like they're seen can be all that's needed. And I also think of the way we know our kids' voices, on a busy playground or something, right? You know when your kid is crying or, having, injured or something like that. If they're screaming mom, it's not as clear. I'll turn my head for pretty much any kid screaming mom, but crying or yelling, I can definitely discern a little bit better. And these are just the little pieces of intimacy in our own lives, and yet God knows us so much better even than that. God being our shepherd is such a good thing. He knows us intimately, he loves and protects us, and is brave for us. And knowing that we are God's sheep, and he shepherds us, and gives us the opportunity to be shepherds for others. So we're just going to take a minute or two here you can use your phone or talk to the person next to you or just do it in your head, but to think about a couple of questions, like where are you being a shepherd to someone in your life, and in what ways? And are there individuals who are shepherds to you, and in what ways? I wrap up this morning, I can't do so without mentioning verse 16, which in the New Living Translation says, I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold, and I must bring them also. And I have two reasons for just kind of mentioning this at the very end. But one, it has stuck out to me many times. Like when I was like looking through my Bible the other day, like that was one of the highlighted things that I obviously at some point also highlighted earlier. But in this particular passage, the writer was writing about Gentiles, or most likely. But also, I think it could have an impact on the larger church when we consider how we can be very different and all be part of God's flock. I think that's a good reminder for me right now. And just worth considering that the flock or the group that we are in is not the only one that God is looking over and loving and protecting. And when we consider our role as shepherds, I think we need to consider how this applies to others outside of our immediate circle. Where can we listen and love and be brave to those that aren't a part of our group yet? And it can be in any sort of small way. So I'll end by saying, go out and be the shepherds where you can. But there will be times when we're also the sheep, and that's good too. So now we're going to move into communion, and Kelly and Kevin, if you want to come up and get us started.
As we head into a time of communion together, we're going to need 3 volunteers to help us pass out the bread and the juice in a moment. But if I could get just 3, raise your hands. Nolan, yeah, 2 more, that'll help. Teddy and Mike, all right, perfect. I'll call on you in a little bit when we need you guys. As we prepare to share communion together, it's helpful to remember that we gather around this table every week because Jesus invites us here. We are invited not because we have done the right things or somehow earned a seat. We're invited because God loves us and tells us that we belong. On the night he was betrayed and abandoned, Jesus had a meal with his friends. And he took a loaf of bread. After giving thanks, he broke it and he gave it to his disciples. He said, "Take, eat, this is my body, which is given for you, and do this in remembrance of me." As we get ready to share the bread and the cup, would you pray with me? God, our Creator, thank you for the gift of Christ, whose love pursues us our whole life long. Thank you, Jesus, for giving your life for us in word and in deed, even unto death. Come, Holy Spirit, feed us with your love, that we may be filled with the ability to love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. Amen.
play along with me, for Zeke and JP's willingness to come and play with me. What a gift to just come together and do all the things together. It is good for my heart. So I hope you all feel that as well. Before we sing our last song, we're going to enter into a time of prayer. And the way that we're going to do that this morning, prayer comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes, right? Sometimes it's a walk in the park. Sometimes it's the very thing that maybe some of us were taught as a young kid, to close our eyes and to think, or to speak words that the Creator will hear and respond. And sometimes it's conversations with friends and community members. So that's what we're going to do this morning. I'm going to ask a series of questions. And if you're in the room, please feel free to just shout out whatever comes to mind. If you're online, we'd love to see whatever you have to say in the comments too. So the first question is this: what has invoked awe and wonder in you recently? That's a big question. I wrote it and then I'm like, what actually has invoked awe and wonder in me? So take a second. What are those things for you? Yeah, I had a feeling that one was coming from your side of the crowd here. Yeah. Oh, what a gift. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Texas doesn't change colors, so you get the change of the seasons here. Oh, that's great. Last night's storm. Watching the lightning does that for me too. Holding a baby usually does it for me too. Somebody else was going to say something. Yeah. Yes. These are good things to pay attention to, and good things to stop when that moment happens, and to be appreciative of those things. Right? Maybe this is along the same lines, but the next question is, what has brought you great joy in the recent days and weeks and months? New job? You just said a new job. CJ, new job. We celebrate that with you. Lists. Excellent. The checking off of said lists brings me great joy. So I'm with you. My kids are currently in Iowa with my parents, and for them to be able to have that time with their grandparents without parents around, it's different, right? If you're a parent or a grandparent, you know that that time is different. So it gives me great joy to see the look on my parents' face as they spend time with my kids, and my kids' faces as well. Let's shift a little bit. We are grateful for all of those things, and we give God thanks for all of those good and wonderful things. But we know that life is not I know there are things on all of our hearts and all of our minds, and sometimes it's hard to say them out loud, and that's okay. I know there are people going through a lot of hard things, some in this room and some just in my life in general, and people who are missing out on things that they wanted, and a sense of hopelessness. So those things are bringing me grief in this moment. All right, one more. What do you need in the coming days? What do you need for the week ahead or for the month ahead as you look forward to what's next? What do you need, either from us as a community, from your family, from your friends? What do you need from God?
I need energy this week.
Energy, yes. Food and water. Good things, my friend. Patience with yourself. That's a hard one sometimes, isn't it? All of these things we hold together, the joys and the sorrows and the things that we need, we hold them with one another because it's too hard to hold on our own. And that's why we gather, to share these things with one another and to let somebody else carry them for a moment, to help us carry them, right? And we offer all of these things to God, and we ask our good shepherd to love and care for us in all of these ways. Let's continue that prayer with this next song. We invite you to stand and sing with us.
Christ be with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ within me, Christ below me, Christ above me, Christ be with me. At my right hand, at my left hand, as I lie down, as I rise up, as I stumble, as I fall down, Christ, as I stand, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me. Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me. Christ in every eye that Christ behind me, Christ within me, Christ below me, Christ above me, Christ be with me. At my right hand, at my left hand, as I lie down, as I rise up, as I stumble, as I fall down, Christ, as I stand, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me. Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me. Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me.
Friends, as we go into the week ahead, may we be people who hear the shepherd's voice. May we be people who experience the love and the care of the Good Shepherd. And may we be people who offer that same love and protection and care to those around us. Amen. Go in peace, everybody. Have a great week. And students, don't forget to register for tonight, and everybody else register for Partner Gathering on Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.